I've been wanting to talk about this for an entire year. Hey everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm really scared to film this video right now. I don't even know where to start. So basically, I'm gonna be talking about what happened to me on this day last year. I don't know how to say this. Okay, so basically on this day last year, I was sent away for 2.5 months, and I'm just gonna tell you guys the story of how it happened. I was taken in the middle of the night and sent to basically the middle of nowhere and lived in a tent for like 10 weeks, 67 nights. So a little backstory, I have suffered from depression and anxiety since I was like 12 and probably even earlier than that. So I kind of like floated around different therapists and like psychiatrists and stuff. So anyways, basically I had anxiety and depression in middle school, and then I kind of like cooled off on it for a while, but then sophomore year, I became depressed again. I had just no motivation to go to class, go to school, so I just skipped classes, ditched school. I failed everything. I wouldn't go to school at all. My teachers would like make fun of me. I also had anxiety because I would miss school, and then when I came back into class, people would make fun of me for missing school, so then I just want to miss school even more. So that was kind of like what was happening of January 2018, and that's when I left school. So I kind of dropped out of high school and I was trying to do online, but that like didn't work at all. I was so unmotivated. I just had no goals. And during that time I was trying to do like this program at UCLA, DBT therapy, and that didn't work. Therapy for me just never felt comfortable. And also therapy made me feel like I'm the problem in the family, and I was constantly told that growing up. So I feel like that's kind of where my hatred for therapy started, because I was like, why am I the only one in this family going to therapy? So in 2018, January I dropped out of high school. February I tried to do this like PHP program. It was basically like therapy in place of school. So like the time that I'd be going to school, I was just going to like this therapy place, and it didn't really help because they had me set goals for myself, and my goals were like so weak. Like they weren't anything like that was hard. I like completed my goals and then just graduated from the program super easily. But I met a lot of really cool people in there. So after I did that, I really was just doing nothing. I had like no friends because I wasn't in school. I really just had low energy. I wasn't hanging out with anyone. That made me even more depressed because I was pretty much just in my house all day. And my relationship with my parents became bad because I wasn't being open about anything, because I wasn't really feeling anything, because I wasn't doing anything. I was just like, I was living but not alive, you know? So last summer I had this family therapy session one day, and it just didn't go as planned. It just ended in me feeling like such a failure and like there's nothing left for me. The therapist was basically telling me that whatever route I'm gonna take is gonna be really hard, and it made me feel so like discouraged and like not confident and very not hopeful at all. Hopeless, that's the word. But basically there's an incident last summer after this therapy session where my family was scared for me. They decided that something really needed to be done because none of the therapy, none of anything was working. So yeah, that's the backstory. It probably didn't make much sense, but basically I was a little depressed teen and my parents wanted me to get help. Now this is a very, very traumatic experience that I've kind of blocked out of my mind, and it happened exactly a year ago. So on August 13th, 2018, I was taken away, gooned at 4 a.m. from this little bed of mine over there. There were 4 people in my room, 2 being my parents. They were like standing at my doorway, I think, and then the 2 like kidnappers basically were at the foot of my bed. Like I always joked around like, oh, I got kidnapped and sent to rehab, even though I didn't go to rehab because I didn't have like a drug problem or anything, and I didn't like get kidnapped because my parents obviously knew about it and they were just transporting me somewhere. But it felt like I was getting kidnapped. I had no idea who they were. I had no idea where I was going. I couldn't talk to my parents. So it was very, very scary and traumatic for me. So I sometimes refer to it as kidnapping, even though I know it's not. Yeah, so my parents basically woke me up in the middle of the night, and I had no idea what was going on. I thought I was having a nightmare actually, because my parents had mentioned like sending me away, but they like, I thought they never would. I was wrong. So yeah, my parents were like at the door. They like said goodbye, and I was like, what do you mean? Like what's happening right now? And the 2 strangers at the bottom of my bed were like, okay, go like change, like we have to go to the airport. And I was like, what is happening? And where are my parents? And they're like, oh, your parents left, like your sisters are gone, like your whole family's not here. We are taking you away. We can't tell you where you're going. And it was terrifying. And so they took me to the airport in this little car that they locked me in, and it sounds terrible, but like it wasn't that bad. Anyways, so we got to the airport, and the whole time I was thinking about like how to run away. I was looking at all these families, and I was like, I want to be like, they said that they could handcuff me, and they had like papers and stuff that like made it so it's like all legal and stuff. Anyways, we got on the plane and end up in Idaho. Mind you, I'm from Los Angeles, California. I'm such a girly girl. When I got to Idaho, I'm just like, what is going on? Like, where am I? Like, I felt like I was in, like, you know the movie Princess Protection Program? That's how I felt. And we drove like past these farms, like into the desert, and I've never seen so many cows in my entire life. So basically I was taken to like this little house where they kind of like stripped me of all my clothes. Like I had to like jump to make sure I had nothing like on me. They handed me like this backpack and all this like weird stuff and these really cute hiking boots. This is actually the backpack that I carried around with me for 67 days, and I had to like carry all my belongings in here and stuff, but we'll get to that later. And then we drove out to the absolutely middle of nowhere. It looked like this, and there's this like little wooden shed, and my first image is of this girl. She was like peeling a block of cheese and like putting it on tortillas, and I was like, where am I? I thought I was living in like a nightmare, because that's what it was. There were about like 6 other girls there that just kind of like told me that they went through the same thing, and they're all here for different reasons. It varied a lot, but the like root of most of the problems were like anxiety, depression, substance abuse, like not expressing emotions well, like bad communication with your parents, stuff like that. The first night there, I cried myself to sleep. I barely ate anything. I had like clenched my like jaws so much because I was so scared the whole time, and I had like a pounding headache. We got these like personal mesh tents, and like you could like see the stars, and I just remember looking at the stars like crying my eyes out, and I like didn't want anyone to hear me. I just remember having such a bad headache that I wanted to like go into a closed room and just scream. Like I wanted to scream, cry, and I really couldn't. So basically in wilderness you'd have like 4 days of base days and then 3 days of like expedition or hiking or like adventure or something. So a day in the life of like a wilderness teen would be like you wake up, you make your own breakfast, you have like a morning group, and then you either hike or you work on skills. Some of our skills was like you learn how to like bow drill. They have to like make sure you're safe and stuff, to like use like knives to like carve spoons and stuff. Oh, I have my spoon somewhere. Ew, this is disgusting. This is my backpack from wilderness, and it's just like, I can't believe I still have these. These are our pee wipes. It stands for personal wipes, not like pee wipes. We basically cleaned our bodies with these because we got showers every 2 weeks, but in between that you'd obviously stink. This was my bow drill set. This was my hat, my like little sun hat. I carved this out of basically like a piece of wood that looked like this. I just like shaved it down and took like coal to like make that like a spoon, you know? This is my hairbrush. Bandana. During the day we could also like journal or work on like some workbooks. We would receive letters from our parents when we got like further into the program. I think I received my first letter after like a week, and I got a phone call with my parents after 2 weeks. This is like the curriculum we had. It's just a bunch of stuff about nature and first aid and animals and stuff. These are my tallies of like the days I was there. It felt like prison, but yeah, I did a lot of journaling there, and I just counted the days till I went home. This is my plate and dinner food thing. We had these like reflective vests because people would go hunting and we didn't want to get hunted, so we wore these. On base days we'd also meet with our therapists, sometimes have phone calls with our parents. We'd read books, write letters, make like friendship bracelets, then cook food, have night group, and go to bed. But that skill stuff, that was only on base days. On other days we'd just be hiking like miles and miles and miles a day. And then on adventure weekends we'd go like rock climbing, mountain biking. We went to like these sand dunes, Bruno Vacay. A lot of people, when I tell them this story, they're worried about like the food, like what the kids eat and stuff. For breakfast we pretty much have like oats and nola, like granola. We had a lot of weird vocab there too, like bee-shug was like brown sugar. For lunch we'd have like tortillas, peanut butter, and like trail mix, but we called it like gorp, I think. For dinner we had like a lot of different options. We had like lentils, rice, beans, but they weren't like actual beans, they were beans that you add water to. It was really gross. We had a lot of potatoes because Idaho, and like various vegetables and stuff. We really had a ration because obviously there's a lot of girls there and we're all like splitting food and we're all starving by the end of the day. And also we'd get moused sometimes, like if girls didn't like put the like food away properly, then mice would come and eat it, and then we'd have the natural consequence of not getting food. Oh, we also had this thing called summy, which was like summer sausage, and we put like honey and brown sugar on it, and it was so good.
Oh, are you filming?
Yeah.
Okay.
During free time we'd also work on like meditation or like controlling our emotions, so we learned like a lot of different like techniques for like conflict resolution and stuff. Oh, another like super random thing that happened there. During the week, our therapist would give us a bunch of different like assignments and stuff to do throughout the week. One week, our therapist gave us candy bars to represent our impulse control, and my candy bar represented the impulse to lie to my parents, which I still have the impulse to do, but I'm still working on that even today. And I have my candy bar, and I never actually got to show my therapist that I kept my candy bar the whole time, so I don't know if she knows this, but if you're watching, this is my candy bar, never ate it. A lot of people ask like, what was this experience like? Was it good or bad? And honestly, it was a mix of both. There was some terrible moments, some of the worst moments of my life, but I also had some of the best, funniest, like the most insanely happy moments of my life. You don't have your phone, you don't have electronics, you don't even have electricity, you don't have buildings, like you literally have nothing. You're stripped of everything. We all just became really vulnerable and got to like deep dive into our emotions and how we were like lashing out and things we didn't even realize about ourselves. Like it was a lot of self-discovery and self-development. Every other Wednesday we got to get a shower after going to this really awesome lady's house. Basically we did equine therapy with horses, and it was at this lady's house. She had this really cool ranch and she had all these animals. She had like tons of horses, she had a cow, she had a pig, she had llamas, she had tons of dogs, tons of cats, and it was honestly the highlight of my experience going to this lady's house. She would like bring us cereal. She was just such a caring person, and honestly I'm probably gonna go back to visit her one time because she's so cool, and she taught me how to ride a horse. Oh my gosh, I love her so much. Oh, and here were some of the animals actually. My therapist took a picture of me when I was on a phone call. I think this was like when I was closer to going home, but yeah, we basically had our hair in braids and like wore these things called a teddy, and I really wish I kept my teddy. We weren't allowed to sleep with them though because they had to like take your shoes at night and everything. Like you had to like lay out all your stuff, and like they had to take it away so that you like couldn't run away in the middle of the night. I remember the first time I was on a phone call with my parents, I just was so emotional. I was crying. I was like, oh my god, like I'm in the middle of nowhere. You guys are at home with like a roof and air conditioning. Like, it just felt like super unfair that I was like doing all this work on myself and I was in the middle of nowhere with nobody, and they were having a hard time too, but it wasn't the same. And we still struggle with this sometimes because like they say it's hard for them, but like I was literally living in the middle of nowhere, like with nobody. Like they at least had each other and had a house and like had a blanket and a pillow. Like I didn't have anything. Also, I didn't know how long I was going to be there or when I was going to go home. We didn't know the time or anything, so being on phone calls and stuff, like all of our letters had to be censored. We couldn't know about any of our friends like outside. So after I was there for 8 weeks, my parents came to visit me. My mom and my dad stayed for 2 or 3 nights, and we went to like Family Spark. You're separate from like the rest of your group. So Family Spark was me, my friend, and my other friend, and we had like a younger boy was there too. So the 4 of our families, I think there's 4 of us, maybe there's 5 families, I don't remember. And you like have these like bigger tents. They make it like really nice for the parents, which is kind of annoying. Like we got fed burgers and stuff, and like we didn't have to cook, we didn't really have to clean. It was just focused on like rebuilding your relationship with your parents and showing them everything you've learned, like proving yourself ready to go home. And it just hurt so bad knowing that they had to leave me again in 2 days. My parents took me in our little tent and they told me that I was coming home in 2 weeks, and at first I was kind of disappointed because I wanted to come home like then, like I wanted to be home, but obviously they had to like work stuff out and create like my transition plan, because a lot of people from Wilderness, they go to like a residential or like a therapeutic boarding school or something like that. My parents thankfully decided just to bring me home because they figured that if I went to like another place that I'd still have to make the transition home. Shout out to all the girls that I was there with. G1, greatest one. I love you guys so much. Those friendships are lifelong and I will never ever forget any single one of them. But most of them I still talk to. We have like a group chat on Snapchat and it's great. So basically at the camp there was like the 6 girls or whatever, and then we had staff changes every other Tuesday. And I'd say the staff was like 60% good, 40% bad. Some of them were just kind of like mean-spirited, and some of them were like a little condescending, like, oh, you don't know what time it is, you like have to listen to me, you have to follow everything I say, because if you were defiant then that'd go back to the therapist and then you'd probably stay there longer, so you kind of had to do whatever you were told. But on the other hand, there were some amazing instructors. This one was almost like a mother figure to me and I love her so much. I'm sorry if none of that made sense, but after all that, I learned how to be independent. I know how to express my emotions even when it's really hard. I rarely lie to my parents anymore. In fact, recently I've been super honest with them, and me being honest with them and telling them like the mistakes I make, I feel like actually builds trust because they trust me to tell them what I'm doing. And when I got home, the transition was really hard because I was from this crazy isolated environment thrown back into my like home life, and I had done all this changing and self like development, and I got home and I was like, you guys are the same. Like my family, I was just like, no one worked as hard as I did. I kind of felt like it wasn't fair. Like they thought that they could just send me away and I'd come home and everything would be fine. The experience mended so many of my family relationships and even like my friendships and stuff. Like I know how to communicate my needs, and sometimes it's really hard. It's not easy to be honest, and it's not easy to express your emotions or how you feel. That's actually super hard, and no one teaches you how to do it either. So I'm really grateful for this experience where I got to learn all these different tools. Also, I'm so much more grateful just to like have a roof over my head, having like a bed. Like I remember getting Gato at the end of the night, Gato powder, Gatorade powder, I mean. It was like a treat there. Same with like chicken bouillon. We'd like sprinkle on our rice and stuff to like make it taste good. Like every time I think of something I'm complaining about now, I'm like, oh, but when I was in wilderness, like I didn't even need to think about that. So now a year later, I'm just gonna kind of wrap this up. Every 2 weeks I meet with a mentor and I love her so much. I don't know, she just helps me a lot and I'm really grateful for her. But now I have so many goals set and that is really what I needed to get out of my depression. Yeah, honestly, if I wasn't sent there, I don't think I'd be alive today, or at least I wouldn't know how to deal with my depression and anxiety and tough emotions. So I'm really, really grateful for the experience, even though it was crazy and traumatic. There's this one quote that is kind of like cringy, but I'll just say it anyway. Sometimes you find yourself in the middle of nowhere, and sometimes in the middle of nowhere you find yourself. And honestly, you guys still probably are so confused about everything I just talked about. So yeah, if you guys have questions, please comment down below and I'll maybe do like a follow-up video answering all your guys' questions about wilderness therapy. I just can't believe that I was there last year. Like I didn't even think I was gonna be alive like this year. Like I didn't know if I was gonna like make it past 16, to be honest. So I'm really proud of myself, and I know it's like super cringy, but I don't really care because it's just the truth. And this is my story about getting kidnapped and sent to rehab. I've been wanting to talk about this for an entire year, and yeah, I'm so happy that I finally have this off my chest, and I'm so excited to edit this video and show you guys. Also, I was back on track for school. This past year I just really worked on catching up, and I finally did that, and so now I'm going to senior year of high school and I'm on set to graduate. So yeah, I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for watching, and I love you more than you know. Yeah, see you in my next video. Bye. I'm surprised I didn't cry or anything, like, damn.